Last video, I went over jewels and why they are so overpowered, but how much of a difference can jewels actually make? Since they add a ton of base stats, jewels can drastically shift the meta. In this video, I'll go over how the three main armor build archetypes, which include secondary stats, are changed and whether or not amulets are still viable. I updated my armor calculator website in the description to include secondary stats, jewels, and min and max bounds for each stat. Quick note, the builds in this video have the highest multiplier for PvP but might lack power. If you want, you can change some enchants from hard to strong or change defense jewels to power jewels. The more you change, the more the multiplier will decrease, but as long as you don't have above 80 power, the multiplier will remain extremely close to the optimal build. The power defense ratio of jewels compared to the enchants are almost the same, so you can change either one if you want. However, if you are a nerd and care about that extra 1 HP from jewels, jewels should be slightly more skewed towards defense compared to enchants. 3 strong enchants give 21 power, which is the same as 7 jewels. As many of you pointed out, an Arcsphere with 2 power jewels now gives more power than a power amulet on top of the extra energy regen it can get. In primary stat focused builds, you still use both power amulet and Arcsphere, but in builds that use secondary stats, the Arcsphere will be a better option than the power amulet. If we compare the Arcane Quartz amulet to Cernyx's Falls will have 6 less defense when equipped with jewels. However, the 6 less defense is definitely a good trade considering the extra effects from jewels. I'd take 10% energy regen over 6 extra health every time. Currently, it seems that amulets are kind of irrelevant as long as you are not already using the Arcsphere. One thing to point out is that jewels scale off jewel crafting skill, not player level. If VTEX increases the level cap in a future update, amulets may still be worth using since they keep getting stronger while jewels won't. Now that we're done talking about amulets, let's move on to the 3 build archetypes. The first type of build is one that focuses exclusively on power and defense. In my older armor videos, I only focused on these stats, but since the previous video, I changed my armor calculator to include secondary stats. However, calculating the best mix of secondary stats depends on how much you weight each stat, but for now, we won't care about that. The best armor pieces for power and defense include the power amulet, Arcsphere, and the full Sunken set. The most ideal enchant and jewel combination is 1 strong, 4 hard, and 8 defense jewels. This gives us a build with 54 power and 1102 defense, resulting in a 2.94 multiplier. Compared to the jewel-less build of 47 power and 926 defense, which had a 2.595 multiplier, the new jewel build is around 13% stronger. This build gets less bonus from jewels compared to the other builds that we will cover, since each additional point of power and defense gives slightly less multiplier than the previous point. Even still, jewels give this build a major advantage in PvP. The advantages of this build include having a lot of size in primary stats, making it very strong in close range and ship fights. Trading damage is very good for this build since it just has so much primary stats. However, do not use this build at large areas such as Munera or Ravenna since it lacks agility and attack speed, which are necessary for range fights. The next type of build is a mixed build which still mainly focuses on power and defense but has a decent amount of secondary stats. The secondary stats ranked from best to worst are attack speed, agility, attack size, and intensity. The 4 main armor pieces include the Arcane Quartz amulet, King's Mantello, King's chestplate, and Cernyx boots. Depending on whether you want more of certain stats, you can add Cernyx's Falls, Sunken helmet, or King's crown. If you are fine with 31 attack size and agility and 36 attack speed, add an Arcsphere. For enchants and jewels, you want to end up with about 50 power and 1000 defense. If you are using Cernyx's Falls or Sunken helmet, this would mean you would have 2 strong, 3 hard, and 8 defense jewels. If you are using an Arcsphere, you should set all your jewels to defense and all your enchants to hard. You can definitely switch around different armors in this build to fit whatever secondary stats you need, and you don't even need Sunken for this build to be strong. This build is 13.8% stronger than the same build without jewels, which is slightly more than the primary stat build. If you want one build that's good in both ship fights and arena fights, this build is right for you. Most people will have a build similar to this since it is so versatile and works for every situation. The third and final build archetype is the Mosquito build. It is really annoying to play against due to its high agility and attack speed stats. I personally haven't played this type of build, but I have played against people who do use it. Due to the amount of stats required, some enchants must be used on secondary stats, which results in a lot less primary stats compared to the first build. One Mosquito build uses the Arcane Corpse Amulet and all 4 king items. To get the required attack speed, 4 of the enchants must be swift, leaving 1 enchant left. Since the king armor set already gives 66 power, you want to equip 8 defense jewels. Due to the power-focused nature of the build, its multiplier will be quite a bit worse compared to the other 2 builds. However, compared to without jewels, this build is 19.6% stronger, showing that the new primary stats that can be gained from jewels make secondary stat builds a lot stronger. One drawback for Mosquito builds is that while they excel at long-range fights, they are pretty much useless at ship fights. They rely on moving around a lot, and when you are confined to a small space, the extra primary stats will outweigh extra attack speed or agility. Who knows? These builds are already gaining popularity very quickly, and that might be for a good reason. Whatever armor build you choose to use is up to you. Especially with secondary stats that are hard to measure, there is no exact best build. Many of the top builds won't even require sunken items, which is a benefit for casual players. I updated my website that calculates optimal armor builds to include secondary stats as well as weights and stat bounds for each of them, so that you can get the perfect build for you. The more restrictions you add, the faster the website will complete. With just the best armor pieces and factoring in enchantments and jewels, there are over 1 billion different armor combinations. I hope this video better helped you understand what optimal builds you can choose from and help you make your own build.